Welcome to Homocide, the podcast. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brandon. And Homocide, the podcast, is your new favorite gay true crime podcast hosted by two homos with nothing better to do.
Rude.
That's us.
I think if people know us, they're like, okay, nothing better to do. All right.
Don't you have like 30 different things
Don't you
going
have like
on?
800 things you're doing?
We for sure do, but that's just what life is for us, and we enjoy it.
Apparently. So, Brandon, why don't you tell us what is your story?
Oh,
about
yeah.
today, or what can it be described as?
So my story today is titled A Psychopath with a Hammer.
Oh my God. I feel like you've had something similar to this.
I'm sure I have at this
With
point.
a hammer. Oh my God. All right.
There was axes. So
maybe
different
it was
kind
an
of
axe.
Yep.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. All right. Well,
What's yours?
Well, my story today can be described as a mid-air massacre just above Longmont, Colorado.
Mid-air.
Mid-air.
Interesting. We should probably say that today's episode is Welcome to Colorado.
It is
Our
welcome to
Colorado themed episode. We should probably add that in the beginning.
We probably should. But yeah, today's episode is all about my home state. Well, kind of my home. Okay, well, I grew up.
You spent the majority of your childhood there.
My lovely childhood full of orphanages, failed adoptions, abuse.
All trauma brought to you by Colorado.
So much. Here's a new episode of Trauma by Kevin. Just kidding. Anyway, yeah.
Murders and trauma.
Murders and trauma. Lovely.
Right.
This is our Colorado-based episode, and I have a telemarketer calling me. Rude.
Just answer it on air.
No, fuck these fuckers. Okay, anyway. So with that, yes. Brandon, any new and exciting stuff? I mean, Anna is not on with us today because she is once again traveling the world, and we're not in New York. We're back in Tampa.
I know.
At our agency.
With this cute little setup, if you're on YouTube watching,
Yes,
it's a fun little
precious little setup with a mural that we had commissioned by the amazing Ashley Cantero here in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah,
if you
she's
don't know
really
her,
great.
you should. But yeah, we had a little. Yeah, that's it. That's all.
That's it.
So my mind went blank right then.
I know. I think you're about to ask me what's new,
Yeah, Brandon, what's new?
but I don't know I don't even know what's happened since the last podcast.
I don't know. It's worth saying that we're doing a little better with, obviously,
Ooh, yeah.
everyone knows that we lost little Martina Rita Fajita in February. So it's been about a month, and we both cried last night.
We
so
did.
We're not there.
Those grief
But
bursts
those
still
little
happen.
Grief bursts are real. Yeah, but we are doing a lot better, which is great. We did take a last week off. Our agency is just outrageously busy right now, which is a great thing.
It is a great thing, but it
Yeah.
doesn't help
With
getting
recording
time
a
to get
podcast,
these
yeah.
notes put together.
Because y'all, putting these notes together is quite an adventure.
It is.
in time consumption. It is a lot
I
of
know.
work.
I feel like every time I'm like, how did it take me that long?
I know, but I'm also finding all these details, and I'm like, ooh, cool. And then I like get down a new rabbit hole, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then
I know.
all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, this is 15 pages. I need
You're like,
to
how are we doing this?
dial it back.
I know. I'm like, these episodes just keep getting longer and longer.
They do. It's actually kind of outrageous, but
But we're thorough. We have to be thorough,
we are thorough,
right?
But it
I
is-
swear I have what 1, 2, 3, like 10 different sources that
I
I
actually
took from.
only have 2 this time.
Really? Oh, I got a lot.
I could have used more, but I'm like, well, these are full enough. So, because this is quite a case, but I mean, it's an interesting one.
No, I'm
It's
excited,
a little
and
bit
this is,
different. Yeah.
and you go first this week too.
I do. But before we dive in, just for all of you fabulous people, our podcast is actually growing significantly.
I know we're doing
We've
pretty
had,
well.
Yeah, quite a few listens and just all these fun things. So it's worth mentioning, please, if you watch us on YouTube, if you like watching us on video, which why wouldn't you? Because we're stunning. But if you watch us, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. But if not, please follow us on wherever you listen to your podcast, but specifically Apple and Spotify.
You know the important ones.
The important ones.
They're all
They're all
important.
important. Don't get it twisted. But those are the most. They are monopolizing the podcast game. So with that, please do rate and review us for sure. Only 5 stars, thank you.
Of course.
But yeah, no, please, if you are a listener and you just love hearing our little homosexual voices,
Our little banter.
Little banter. Let us know. Brandon, do you want to show off your shirt today? Because you're gorgeous.
Yes. My Homocide, the podcast. I can't even see the
Yeah,
camera.
and nobody's going to see it. Yeah. So.
No. Well, here we go.
But we do have...
If you're listening...
Gorgeous, stunning.
Sorry, you can't see
yes.
it.
Oh,
Chic.
work.
It's literally the Homocide podcast. Oh, my gosh. The Homocide podcast logo on my shirt.
Which, by the way, it's a piece of art. It is worth noting that Brandon did draw.
I did. This is the first logo I've ever created that I drew myself, which is weird.
Really?
That I've actually like drew, and then scanned, and then
I thought you had done. I feel like when we started dating, you had a whole notebook of like drawing.
I did. They were like
logos.
ideas of stuff, but it was never the designs that I did were never drawn for the logo. It was drawn for inspiration. So this was the first time I actually drew something and used it as a logo.
And it's sick.
Which is fun.
You did a great job. I did, yeah. I lost my train of thought.
Okay. Well, you did.
That's that story. Anyway, yeah, I am going first today on this here episode. Welcome to Colorado. So.
We would say colorful, but
it is trademarked.
It's trademarked.
And
so if you go to Colorado, you see colorful Colorado everywhere.
You do. When you're entering the state, like really, I think it's at every road. Going to the state, there's this gorgeous sign that says "Welcome to colorful Colorado," and yeah, it's trademarked. So I probably shouldn't have just said it, but I did. And we work in the marketing advertising space, and so we were like, let's avoid that.
Yeah.
Although whatever. So with that, Colorado. Yeah. So my story. Do you want to know my title of my story?
Yeah, say it again because I don't remember it.
Well, I didn't say this.
Oh,
the title.
see, you don't. See, I use the
as.
title. Not
You do, yeah, and I don't. So
you're adding extra work.
This is the story of my life.
It is.
Yeah, it really is. My title is Jack. You're a greedy bastard.
Oh, Jack.
But it also can be John. You're a greedy bastard.
Is there multiple people?
No.
Or is it just one person who has
just one person with a cute little nickname called Jack, but he's an asshole, so I called him John throughout.
Okay.
Because he probably didn't like being called John. He
Jack.
wanted to be called Jack.
Oh, well, if it's by his nickname.
It's his nickname.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck you. I'm going to call you John. So
we'll go with your birth name on this one.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Okay. Well, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay. All right.
I'm so excited. You were, just like every other story, you were gasping and making noises.
I'm a gasper.
You're such a loud person, just in general.
Okay, I think that actually everyone would admit that.
Yeah, like Kevin will sit at his computer and just make noises or talk to himself, and everybody at work is like, who's he talking to?
Yeah, just does happen a lot. They're like, what? And I'm like, oh, no, nothing. That was for me. Anyway, okay, y'all. It was 6:52 p.m. on November 1st of 1955.
Ooh, an older story.
An older story. When United Airlines Flight 629, why did I say 9 like that?
629.
9. Okay. United Airlines Flight 629, bound for Anchorage, Alaska, took off from the old Stapleton Airport in Denver, Colorado. If you've been to Denver, Colorado recently, or I don't know, since
recently
the 90s, I think, you go through DIA, Denver International Airport, but that was not the airport originally. It was Stapleton Airport, which where that old airport was much closer to Denver, and it's actually a cute little neighborhood.
Yeah.
At this point, and one of the old
towers
is still over there, which is pretty cool. And fun fact, my biological mother worked at Stapleton Airport.
Wow, that's so fun.
Before I went to foster care.
So
okay,
fun.
because my life was fun. Oh, there's the motorcycle. I wonder if he's hot.
Probably not.
But
we're
also
in Florida.
I'm assuming that it's maybe a man, and it's probably not, because that's that. So, as the beautiful lights of Denver began to fade in the background, all 44 passengers who were aboard the flight settled into their seats for the journey ahead. Of those 44, 39 were regular passengers, one being an infant, and there were 5 crew members. When I think about like today's standards of flights, that's actually a pretty small.
Oh yeah,
like flight
that's
in general.
Pretty small, yeah.
Yeah. So 11 minutes into the flight, after they took off from Stapleton Airport, as the plane flew over Longmont, Colorado, a loud explosion occurred mid-flight, breaking the plane into several pieces,
Oh my
killing
gosh.
everyone on board,
Oh my gosh.
and causing fiery pieces of plane and bodies to rain down on the ground below.
In bodies, not bodies. That's terrifying.
Yeah. This is the story of John Gilbert Graham, a hapless criminal and one of Colorado's worst mass murderers.
It's awful. Hapless.
Hapless. I don't know. They used it in one of these, and I was like, cool word. So I put it in. So a couple of interesting things. So Longmont, Colorado is not too far outside of Denver. It's like 45 minutes away north. I actually went to high school in a town called Berthoud, Colorado, which if you remember back, my adopted sister Brienne actually did a Homotown murder from Berthoud, Colorado.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling, Denver's kind of like mid-state-ish, and you go up from there and you're hit on I-25 and you're hitting like Thornton and Broomfield and Northland, like you're just kind of going up.
Where it starts to get quieter and quieter,
Quieter,
and
although there's a
quieter
lot
until
more.
you get to Fort Collins.
Until you get to Fort Collins. And Fort Collins is like not too far, honestly, from the Wyoming border, because Cheyenne, Wyoming is not that far from Fort Collins. Anyway, Longmont, it goes Longmont, Berthoud, Loveland, Fort Collins. There's other towns, but so Longmont, Colorado, I actually owned a condo there when I was younger. And lived there for quite some time. So I actually looked up like where the plane landed, and it was not that far from where I
Really? Had you ever heard of this story before you saw it?
I've never heard of this.
That's
story.
so weird.
And apparently, it was a huge story in Colorado. So, all right, let's dive in, and I'll start with John Gilbert Graham. And again, like I said at the beginning, Jack. John's nickname was Jack. So, but I'm going to refer to him as John because he's an asshole. So. Born on January 23rd of 1932, he was born in Denver, Colorado to William Graham and a Daisy E. Walker.
Oh, Daisy.
I do love the name Daisy.
It's cute.
So John was nicknamed Jack and was the second child of Daisy's, as she had a child from a previous marriage. So he was actually born during the height of the Great Depression, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In general, it has no weight on this story at all, but it is interesting nonetheless.
It's just a fun fact.
Yeah. His parents separated when John was just 18 months old, and by the time he was 3, his father passed away from pneumonia. After his parents' separation, John was raised by his grandmother. And what's interesting is that his mother ended up getting married again not too long after, which was her third marriage, to a man named John Earl King. And he was a well-to-do rancher.
They all are.
Which I think he was well-to-do.
What does that even mean?
I'm not
So he
sure.
was Christian.
He was Christian, white, and wealthy. Lovely.
Republican.
Well-to-do rancher. So, I mean, he was, Northern Colorado.
so yes, he was Republican.
Even though his mother married this new guy, she did not go get her son because, remember, John was raised by his grandmother.
Yeah.
So when John was 9, his grandmother ended up passing away, and he was quickly sent to the Clayton College for Boys, which I read that, and I'm like, are we in Britain now?
Right.
Like,
Clayton
so interesting.
College
Clayton
for
College
Boys.
for Boys. So Clayton College was a relatively progressive orphanage that allowed the boys a fair amount of physical freedom.
Oh, weird.
So that's interesting. So like he could run in the fields? I don't know.
He would just prance around.
frolicking in the fields.
He was definitely frolicking.
No, it wasn't frolicking. What was it? Foraging.
Foraging. Yes.
Foraging.
From our last.
Foraging.
Not
in
even
the
our
fields.
last
No,
episode.
it was
What's
like
that?
2 ago. I don't know. It stuck with me.
It did.
So being put in this school made John feel abandoned by his mother. And according to the book titled 11 Minutes, The Sabotage of Flight 629 by Edward C. Davenport. John, that was really good.
That was.
Thank you. John
It's like
felt,
an intro to like a movie.
I should do more voiceover work.
You should.
Excuse me, agent. Okay, so John felt he'd been sent there because his mother didn't love him. Oh, John.
That's sad. She probably didn't.
Oh my God, poor thing. Ugh.
Well, that is, I mean, partially trauma.
Sure.
And
Sure.
the feeling of abandonment can affect you in many different ways.
I know.
And murder
Yes.
and killing people is not one you should do.
I don't.
I'm not saying
I have-
you.
I-
I
I
mean
wish
you
that
as a
as-
collective.
Oh, yeah,
Us-
true.
You as a world.
I wish that for me as a human, I felt more for some people.
Yeah.
Because when these are like, my mommy didn't love me, I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, fuck you. I didn't have a mom.
I didn't have a mom. I don't. I even got adopted by another mom who didn't want me either. So, Okay, anyway.
Like we said, trauma.
Trauma.
We should change the episode to be trauma.
Trauma. I feel like at this point, we're trauma bonding with our entire audience.
We are.
So we feel you. We hear you.
Send in your traumas.
Yes.
Let's have a trauma
Let's just have
group.
a trauma segment.
Right.
We're sharing our traumas.
Oh my God, imagine if we had a segment where we just had people send us their trauma stories and we read them anonymously. That would actually be kind of fun.
Oh my God, it would probably be really sad.
And then we have to like speak it in a certain tone. Like act out the trauma.
Oh my God.
Not act it out, that would be weird. But like,
where are we going with this?
I don't know.
This got fucked up.
I know, my mind has just been racing with creative ideas today.
All right, well, that's a good thing.
You're
we do
welcome.
have a big presentation tomorrow.
We do.
That's that. Also, it's Monday, and our episode's out tomorrow, so that's what we're doing. Hello. So anyway, back to John. John would spend holidays off from school on his stepfather's ranch. So remember, he was in the orphanage, but during holidays, he would get to go to where his mom was, with this guy that
like
this
visitations.
well-to-do rancher. Yeah. Kind of. Like he would go there. It was like a school. I don't know. I wasn't alive, but basically he would have to return back to the school orphanage when the breaks were over. So when John was 13, he was taken in by one of his stepfather's neighbors and lived there for a short time. Like so many other episodes in his short life, it didn't work out, and he was eventually allowed to live on the ranch with his mother. So what's interesting is that his stepdad, John Earl King, actually passed away not too long after his mom and him got married. Oh. And because of that, he left a significant inheritance to John's mom, Daisy. So she actually became a fairly successful businesswoman after that.
Oh, good for her.
Really interesting. So once on the ranch, John's life went from one botched scheme to the next because he was a little fraudster. At 13, little fucker. So, and this is children, right? Go back to the episode of children. There's some creepy ass.
There's
John
a lot of creepy kids.
One of them. So, anyway, he jumped from one relative to another and actually left home for a bit at 16 years old. So, John ended up having a brief stint in the Coast Guard. Hey, Hillary. My friend Hillary is in the Coast Guard.
And she's going to be on an episode soon.
And she's going to be on the episode soon, like in 2 episodes, which I'm excited about.
It'll be fun.
She lives here. We grew up in Colorado, but she lives here in Florida. So anyway, okay. So John ended up having...
Why did you just break into song?
I don't know. Who doesn't do that?
Most people, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's true. All right. So... Again, Coast Guard, he jumped, and then from there, he jumped from one entry job to the... What are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at you singing.
You're welcome. John ended up having a brief stint.
Please do the whole episode singing.
And jumped... No, kidding. That was awful.
That was aggressive.
It was aggressive. I got nervous. Okay, so he also had several... I thought it said Brussels. He also had several brushes with the law, mostly due to fraud. So throughout this entire time of his childhood, John maintained a complicated relationship with his mom, Denise, as in Daisy, because his mom's name is not Denise. And this doesn't say Denise, but it came out Denise.
Yep.
So Daisy.
You might have some dyslexia as well.
Yes, clearly. And ADHD and all these other things. Okay. Regardless, though, she would bail him out of the multiple legal problems that he faced. And she was always ready to pay restitution and keep his jail sentences minimized.
Well, that's where she went wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I'd have been like, bye.
No, I think if you keep doing shit, you should probably deal with the consequences.
I agree. So a Rocky Mountain News article from April 1956 quoted a friend of Daisy's describing the mother-son duo, saying, Jack was her favorite. She took his word as a law and gave him a lot of things. I suppose Daisy was a little neurotic. Rude. Okay, so as John grew older and sort of like settled down, his mom ended up purchasing him a home and then hired him to manage her drive-in restaurant called The Crown A, which was at 581 South Federal Boulevard in Denver, which, by the way, I looked up earlier, and it is not far from Saigon Bowl on Federal in Alameda,
I love Saigon Bowl.
which we always go to it when we go back
it's
to
really good.
Colorado. But when I took Brandon there to live there for a couple of years, which is where we got married too.
Oh, it's so good.
And didn't Sam show it to us?
Yeah, she
Sam
did.
Saunders, who I think listens to it, one of my theater friends. Sam, I think she showed us it. And,
yeah.
Oh, God,
it was so good.
So if you're in Denver, and this is not a paid thing, go to Saigon Bowl because it is like, oh my God.
Yeah, they have this appetizer where you can make your own spring rolls, which is really fun. Anyways, have you been to this place, or is this place still around?
No, like now it looks like a little rundown. I don't even know. I don't know. I don't want to be offensive.
Okay.
So it just does not look like somewhere I would go. So anyway, but I mean, the building looks like it's still there. The lot is still there for sure, but there's like a little shack kind of a building. Yeah. So anyway, so he managed that restaurant that his mom actually owned, which was the Drive-In restaurant.
So, okay, but back to that, you said she bought him a house?
Yeah, she buys him a house.
She buys him a house, gives him a job.
But gets him out of jail.
She really loves her son now. Where was she in his childhood? But yet, as he grows up,
she was fucking Earl or whatever his name was. So anyway, John was not well liked. Oh my God, that reminds me of the Chicks song. The
Dixie Chicks. Goodbye, Earl.
Their name isn't Dixie Chicks anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Chicks. Yeah. I'm sorry. Chicks. I forgot that.
No, you grew up with that.
I know. It's a habit.
But the Chicks, it rang in my mind, but I think quick. So I was like, it's not that.
I don't think quick.
I know. Anyway.
It takes me a minute sometimes. It's funny because it's true.
It's true. Anyway, I mean, sometimes me too, but whatever. How are we successful?
I don't know.
And maybe we're not. I don't know. Anyway, I forgot everything. Oh, the Chicks.
Yes.
Earl Had to Die, that song. Yeah, I kept thinking of it whenever I was seeing his name, which was only twice, so maybe thrice. Okay.
Thrice.
So John ended up, so John was not well liked, obviously. And he actually made his mom's life quite difficult by exploding at restaurant employees and continuing to engage in dubious activities.
Oh, dubious.
So they constantly fought about the operation of the restaurant, and his mother believed that John had been taking money from the business. So John ended up marrying a woman named Gloria A. Elson, who he met during a failed stint at DU, Denver University. So they eventually had 2 kids named Alan and Suzanne. So on Labor Day weekend in 1955, a mysterious explosion nearly leveled the Crown A, and John was the main suspect. Though nothing was ever proved, he would eventually admit to attempting to blow up the place as part of an insurance fraud scheme. And now we're going to get into the details.
There you go. So did he admit to that?
He admitted to that later.
Okay.
When other stuff went down.
Other stuff.
Went down.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that was an interesting joke.
And on that note, we're moving into the plane crash. So, goodness.
You're so dumb.
So this is awful. Okay, this is a rough episode. This is why Anna needs to be here. Because she keeps us in line, I think.
Does she? Because you still say whatever you want to say.
I do. Okay. So, November 2nd, 1955, United Airlines Flight 629 blows up and rains debris down on Longmont, Colorado. So the explosion was witnessed by farm families, which that's a really interesting way to describe
farm families. Is that what it was?
Farm families. That's what it said in all these articles from 1955. So it was witnessed by farm families in the Longmont area who heard a blast followed by a rain of fiery debris falling from the sky. Which
that's terrifying.
That is really scary. First off, plane crashes are fucking terrifying in general, but that is really
and that's
scary.
not, and that's different than any other. It's not a plane crash. It blew up in the air.
Mid-air.
That's terrifying. That's
it's boom, and it just flies down.
In the 50s, I'm sure that they were all probably thinking that it was some kind of world attack kind of event.
In the 1950s?
Yeah.
Planes have been around for a while, though.
No, I know, but it being some kind of bombing attack, like a big something.
Sure. So
yes, I know planes were around before then.
I'm like, are you thinking that these are the ones where it was open air?
It's the Wright brothers.
There's no there's no fucking straps or anything. They're just flying.
Yes. To take off, they have to run with the plane and jump out.
No pressurized anything.
They have to go downhill with it.
No, have you seen the ones where it's open windows with like curtains? That
yes.
I always think it was an open window. Those curtains were just slapping people in the face.
Yeah,
that would have pissed me off. Okay, anyway. So when witnesses arrived to help search for survivors, they were subjected to a gruesome scene because it just blew. And so body parts, just awful
that's terrifying.
stuff. Yeah. So the explosion appeared to have been of tremendous force, so much that it caused fiery streamers to fall from the plane. And a flare, which was normal equipment carried on the plane, I guess, had separated from the plane, ignited, and descended slowly to the earth. So this flare is also going. Bodies are falling, flames, But, I mean, it was
It's not
just,
even bodies falling; it's body parts are falling.
yeah, like it was
That's
just
terrifying.
clearly like luggage on fire.
Imagine getting hit by an arm. Like that's.
Oh my God, that went dark. I mean,
But
that
like
would be
it's
terrifying.
It's terrifying.
I
don't mean that in a funny way. I know it probably is, but it's terrifying.
Especially because you have an arm on your shirt. Shit. Okay, so anyway, Jesus, this is messy.
I know we're in a mode today.
We are.
You're welcome.
You are
friends.
welcome, listeners. or all of them are like, this is a horrible episode.
Right.
So
We've lost everybody already.
So a second explosion occurred when the engines and forward compartment of the plane struck the ground as well. Obviously, because fuel and all that kind of stuff. So it was just like a lot. So the control tower, or a control tower operator rather, at Stapleton Airport later said that he had observed the flash of light and the flare at 7:03 p.m. And that's some distance.
That's quite
right?
far.
So the explosion.
But it is also Colorado, and that area is so flat.
It really is, yeah. Like just in the distance are the mountains.
It's not like they're
just flat
on the other side of the mountains. It's just,
Exactly.
I'm sure you could see pretty far on a bright day.
Yeah. So the explosion happened approximately 8 miles east of Longmont, Colorado, and at an altitude of 10,800 feet, but that's based off sea level. So it was actually 5,782 feet above the terrain. So it actually wasn't even that high.
No.
So what's interesting about this specific event is that this ended up being a huge news story in Colorado, but also across the country. And an investigation into the wreck immediately followed and actually set the stage for modern airline disaster investigations where they rebuild the plane and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And copycat crimes, as well as it planted the roots for court TV.
Oh, that's cool.
In 1955. Isn't that
That's interesting.
So let's go into the investigation then. Because I'm sure everyone already knows what happened. This one's like not like other ones, but it's an interesting.
Yeah,
it's just interesting.
Well, it's not like he attacked them with knives. Like it's different.
Yeah, much more calculated, which is maybe scary. I don't know. So,
well, I mean, you're planning to get on a plane. You're not thinking that somebody is going to bomb it or whatever is about to happen.
Yeah. So, like I said, this was November 1st, right? That this had happened. So, by November 7th of 1955, the chief of investigations of the Civil Aeronautics, I think it is, board officially stated that there were indications of sabotage. So at the time, he asked the FBI, that was interesting, he asked the FBI to institute an appropriate criminal investigation of the crime, which had taken 44 lives. So November 8th, 1955, they began their investigation. So witnesses that were running to the scene to see if there were survivors, as well as investigators that went there, they immediately suspected foul play because they noticed a distinct odor of dynamite throughout the wreckage. And investigators pointed out that some of the bigger pieces of the plane appeared to have dropped directly from the sky and sunk deep into the earth.
Oh my gosh.
Because a plane crash it's not just, falling basically straight down, which is what it kind of did. And so the entire debris field actually stretched out over a 15-mile range.
Oh, wow.
Which is humongous.
All over the farm families.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. All materials possibly connected with the plane were recovered from the debris field, and they were taken to a warehouse at Stapleton Airport and placed under guard. There were, of course, other things that were found, like bits of mail and stuff like that, and I'll tell you why. So a full-size mock-up of the central section of the plane was made of wood and wire netting, and all parts of the plane were then wired to the mock-up in their proper places, and they were assembled like a giant jigsaw puzzle.
That's so interesting.
I know, which part of me is like, I want to do that.
Right. It's like one of those 3D puzzles. Like that's super cool.
Oh my God. I had a 3D Titanic puzzle when I was younger.
Of course you did.
I also had one of the Empire State Building. It was really fun.
Of course you did.
I loved the Titanic one. Anyway, they determined that the explosion had occurred at what they call Station 718 in the rear cargo pit, designated as cargo pit number 4. This point of explosion was further pinpointed as being almost directly across the cargo compartment from the cargo loading door. So basically, a piece of luggage was put in, which was the source of an explosion. Okay. So what's interesting too is that they kind of knew a little bit more based off of like near that area on people's skin with like the materials that were on there from like the burning and the like.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Investigations from a range of agencies, which included the FBI, FFA, Civil Air Patrol, United States Postal Service, because it was carrying U.S. mail bound for Alaska, and United Airlines combed the wreckage and came up with an interesting clue. Here's where things get twisty. Well, they were pretty twisty when bodies were falling to the ground. But
correct.
What's interesting is every known suitcase on the flight was recovered, most in remarkably good condition, as the explosion occurred near the front of the plane. All the suitcases, except for one, belonging to John's mom.
Oh.
Who was on that plane. So.
Oh my God.
I know. So what's interesting is that
After
morning.
I mean, she treated you like shit as a child, but she at least gave you a house and a job.
Rude. So she was actually on that plane going to visit her daughter, his sister, in Alaska.
Oh my gosh.
And
it must have just taken off because it left. Did it leave? Obviously it left from DIA.
11 minutes into
Stapleton
the flight
Airport.
from Stapleton. Yeah, 11 minutes later. Yeah. So, okay. Upon further investigation, authorities found that King's, her name was King, Denise King, because she had gotten married to,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, or not Denise. I keep calling her Denise.
You do,
Daisy.
and I didn't even connect that.
I
You
love
just
the
did
name
that.
Daisy. I know.
But Denise is also a fun word too.
Denise. Daisy. Daisy's better.
Daisy.
Okay. So Daisy.
Just a dollop of Daisy.
Oh, don't. It's probably trademarked too or some shit.
Oh, I'm sure
Okay.
that definitely is trademarked.
Authorities found that Daisy's son had been convicted of several crimes, including stealing blank checks from an employer and running bootleg liquor. So FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover,
Yes.
yeah, ordered agents to focus on him, which they had in quotes, after learning this information. So authorities were also intrigued by the fact that John had purchased several life insurance policies on his mother at the airport, totaling more than $50,000, which is about $350,000.
Wait, he did it at the airport?
Hold on. I knew you were going to say that. About $350,000 in 2020 dollars. So I put in here, who knew you could purchase life insurance policies at the airport?
Can you really?
So yeah, in mid-century America during that time.
That seems like a very obvious. Well, but I'm sure it was also people being like, well, we don't know how the safety
flights-
of this.
yeah,
Who knows
yeah.
what could happen?
So it says that life insurance vending machines were
Get yourself a Kit Kat and a life.
and a Kit Kat, a soda, and a life insurance policy. So they had life insurance vending machines where a policy could be purchased for as little as 25 cents. And they were common features at airports of all sizes.
What was the denomination of that 25 cents?
I have no clue. For 25 cents, you get 10,000. I don't know. I don't know. So it was learned that upon the death of his mother, because again, she died in the plane crash, John was supposed to also receive a substantial inheritance.
Well, because of the man that she was with that had a lot of money. Okay.
So as they're investigating, they also found that Daisy had a considerable amount of personal effects that were recovered from the wreckage, including a number of personal letters, newspaper clippings about her family, a personalized checkbook, $1,000 in traveler's checks, an address list, and 2 keys with a safety deposit box receipt. Those were with her.
She had
weren't in
news
her
clippings of her
suitcase.
family?
One of the newspaper clippings reflected that her son, John, had been charged with forgery by the Denver County District Attorney and had been placed on the local most wanted list by that office in 1951. From the fact that most of these personal effects of hers were found on or near her body, it was apparent that she had been carrying them in her personal handbag at the time of the crash rather than in her luggage. So,
That's weird that she would have that.
Yeah. None of her luggage was recovered, obviously, and the only small bits of the suitcases of that suitcase were believed to belong to her were found, because we'll see. So let's talk about some interviews that came up. So remember, at this point, we know that 44 people have passed away on a flight that blew up over.
And he
Longmont,
didn't know
Colorado.
any of these other people, just his mother.
Just his mom. So his mom boarded that flight in
Like,
that
there's
morning.
other, I mean, not to say that he should be killing anybody, but
just wait till
why
he
did you have
says
to
about
kill
this.
all of these other people?
Well, we don't know that he killed any of them yet, right?
Well,
Anyway, so what's
I mean,
interesting?
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Yeah, yeah.
So this is a true crime podcast.
So his mom was on that flight going to see his sister, right? Those are the things that we do know. He found out that she died, and he was like, "Oh my goodness." Anyway, so the police suspected him, obviously, from several different for several different reasons, including all of this other stuff, and his mom being on that flight. So they also were able to identify other victims that were on the flight because they also had insurance policies that were out on them and whatever. So November 10th, 1955. So we're not that far after the plane. John was interviewed with his half-sister, the one from Alaska, but mostly focused on his childhood and history. They did, however, focus on the 1955 fire that happened at the Crown A restaurant. So John actually ended up stating that in the spring of 1955, his mother had purchased property, built, equipped, and opened a drive-in restaurant which he managed. He said that the drive-in business did not do well unless he was actually operating it.
Of course. So he's narcissistic as well.
Yeah. So he said that during May of 1955, some unknown vandals, aka him, had caused considerable damage to the window glass at the drive-in, and that in September of 1955, an explosion and fire had occurred at the drive-in during the early morning hours. Now remember, that's September of 1955, and the plane crashes on November 1955.
Yeah. So it was very soon after.
Yeah, so according to him, an examination of the drive-in restaurant, revealed that someone had disconnected a gas line connection, allowing the gas to flow into the room, obviously accumulating until it reached a pilot light on a water heater, which ignited the gas, causing the explosion. So according to him, $3 and change was missing from the cash register, and some of the furniture in the drive-in had maliciously been broken. The total damage had amounted to approximately $1,200, which was like not a lot of money, but
at that time it was more than.
Yeah. So John also stated in this same conversation, as he's divulging all the information, that he had suffered some misfortune in connection with a new 1955 Chevy pickup, which had stalled on a railroad track and had been hit by a train.
Convenient.
That's a dude was a fraudster.
Right. That's a pretty interesting place for it to just crap out on you.
I agree. So John also offered a description of his mother's luggage, but claimed he had no knowledge of the contents, saying that his mom would never allow someone to actually assist her in packing, and that he had not helped his mother with any of her packing, and he did not place anything in her luggage. So he did say, though, that his mother had a considerable quantity of shotgun shells and rifle ammunition with her, intended for use in hunting caribou in Alaska.
Okay.
I'm like, okay.
Sure.
So a day later, November 11th of 1955, John's wife, Gloria, was interviewed and stated that her husband had given his mom a present on November 1st of 1955, right before she left for the airport. So she also stated that John had brought the package to the basement where his mom was packing her luggage, and said that the gift was approximately 18 inches in length, 14 inches wide, and 3 inches in depth. She didn't know what it contained, but thought it was a tool set for jewelry.
Very specific, though.
I know.
Like, how did she get that measurement?
Like, how did you get that measurement? Like, if it was a man, they would have measured it way different. They based it off of their penis size.
Okay.
They're like,
that looks like 8 inches.
That must be 8 inches. Girl, that's 4 inches. All right. Anyway, all right, let's talk about the confession. This is my okay, you can do that when you're there. Okay, so Sunday, November 13th. Sunday later, the FBI ended up inviting John and his wife to the FBI building on Stout Street to identify the charred pieces of Denise's luggage, as well as to clear up some details pertaining to the case. So for over 12 hours, the FBI agents pressed John because they knew that John had tampered with his mother's suitcase because a suspicious neighbor had told them he had mentioned that he was going to sneak a Christmas present into her luggage. Interesting. So John's mother was actually a hobbyist who made costume jewelry. And when pressed by that, her son said that he actually had purchased a jewelry making tool set for her, and that he put the tool set into the luggage and secured the bag.
Oh, okay.
So
the bag
said,
that he
I didn't do anything.
With,
and then he's like, oh, I just kidding. I brought her this gift. So anyway, there was, however, like no jewelry tools that were discovered. Obviously. Instead, Mr. John had packed 25 sticks of dynamite and a few blasting caps on a 20-minute timer into her luggage.
Oh, my God.
So that it would blow that long into about 20 minutes into the flight, which would put them right into the mountains, which then would have been a very difficult place to have an investigation.
Yeah.
Because remember, Longmont is
that was
far
like
outside of the
very
foothills.
thought out.
Yeah. So about that was Sunday morning, right? 6:30 at night. Agents started to be like, okay. So they informed him that he was actually a suspect in the bombing and that he was both free to go and call an attorney. Apparently, this was actually before the Miranda rights that were required to be read. So John continued to lean into his made-up stories to the feds. So around midnight, Agent James R. Wagoner said, "You've been lying to us all night. We are going to charge you with this crime. Why not make it easy for us?" And so John replied, "Where do you want me to start?"
Okay.
So he then spilled.
I would have been like, we had to wait this long for you to just say that.
Right?
Like, that's all I had to say?
Like, bitch, I'm hungry. So he then spilled his plot to cash in on his mother's death and be rid of her once and for all, saying, "I watched her go off for the last time. I felt happier than I ever felt in my life."
Wow.
The other 43 people on the plane didn't matter to him. His regret was that a 10-minute delay had caused the plane to explode over open farmland.
To help him get caught.
In his original plan, the device would have detonated over the mountainous terrain, which would have made finding evidence and difficult to impossible for investigators.
Fuck you.
That was his only regret.
You're an asshole.
So, as it was, investigators were finding piles of evidence against him after an investigation that was incredibly thorough and utilized state-of-the-art investigative techniques that are still the mainstay of contemporary air disaster investigations. Isn't that interesting?
That's really interesting.
Yeah. This wasn't the first time this had happened, but it was the first time that it went to this scale and had that. Yeah. So, all right, his arrest. So obviously he confessed to this murder of these 44 people on this plane and ended up, building a bomb that then he placed into his mother's suitcase, had that put onto the plane, and then knew that it would explode, killing her and whoever else was in the vicinity of that. And so severely calculated. He had been doing, shit years before that with fraud and whatever.
He was just an overall great guy.
Greedy as fuck. So anyway, he was charged with the murder of his mother with federal charges for the destruction of the plane. So I did read that if something like this happened today, the charges would be substantial. Yeah. But that was what he was charged with. So 4 days later, after his confession, he recanted his confession.
Of course he did.
In an interview that appeared in the Rocky Mountain News under the headline, "Dynamiter Changes His Story." So he attempted to clear himself by reason of insanity after a botched suicide attempt, but he was found to be in good enough mental condition to stand trial. So the trial actually ended up being set for April 16th, 1956. So they really moved quick
very quickly.
Now
it would have been
we're waiting
months
for,
longer,
for
years
Trump,
later.
who's literally getting by with everything, not having any trial dates.
That's
and this,
what happens when you are a billionaire,
I guess.
Billionaire, whatever you are. At this point, you can't even get $500,000 or $500 million put together.
So today that he can't find the whatever. So anyway, April 16th, 1956, trial starts. Prosecutors brought in witnesses who recalled John purchasing dynamite and blasting caps and were actually able to pick him out of a lineup. They also produced witnesses who attested that John's mechanical skills, or attested to his mechanical skills and prior experience with dynamite. And then they also linked the wire that was used in the bomb to wire that was found in his house. So after the crash, John told investigators that he was upset that his mother died without ever seeing, not investigators. After the crash, John told neighbors that he was upset that his mother died without ever seeing the surprise Christmas gift he'd put into her luggage, which is really fucked up.
That is very fucked up.
And because John was so specific about exactly what kind of gift investigators, or what kind of gift he actually put into his mom's suitcase, investigators had no problem finding the only place in Denver, or the Denver metro area that sold them, and proved you didn't.
You didn't buy it.
You actually didn't buy that.
Yeah.
So,
because there was no Amazon Prime 2-day.
Exactly. He also apparently before that had mentioned that he had premonitions of his mother's death. And he was saying that as early as November 3rd, 1955, right after she had died. He's like, I had premonitions of her death.
Okay.
Yeah, because you planned it. So over the course of the 15-day trial, prosecutors obviously meticulously laid out their case and established that the cause of the crash was a non-mechanical explosion. So the prosecution also brought the judge and jury to a massive hangar near Stapleton Airport or airfield where this plane, which they called the mainliner, that's what they like called this, the mainliner, had been meticulously reconstructed. So they took them over to there. Though this type of reconstruction had been used in investigative air disasters previously to this was one of the largest reconstructions done up to that point in time. So the case against John was amplified in a way that no other suspected criminal had experienced to that point because of a new Okay. The case against him was amplified in a way that no other suspected criminal had ever experienced to that point because TV cameras came in. So what's interesting is that the state of Colorado versus John Gilbert Graham is actually the very first trial in U.S. history where television cameras were allowed to record the proceedings.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And what I read in there too is that they gave the option for people to like not be on camera.
Yeah.
And the only person that said no, who do you think it was?
Him.
Yeah.
Of course.
Was John. So on May 5th, after
At that point, you shouldn't be giving him any options for anything.
No. So on May 5th, after hearing 80 witnesses and examining 174 pieces of evidence, the jury in the case obviously found him guilty.
Yeah.
And so it took an hour for them to come back with a guilty verdict, and they actually recommended the death penalty. Oh, wow. So interestingly enough, when the verdict came down, John waived all of his appeals in general, which was on May 15th. And he was then sent to Colorado's death row in Cannon City. So against his wishes, John's legal team actually filed motions to halt the date with him going to the gas chamber. So those actually stretched that year up until October of 1956 when the Colorado Supreme Court upheld his death sentence. And his execution date was set for the week of January 12th, 1957. Oh, wow. Like, this is all
That was very quick.
And he actually ended up being executed by the gas chamber at the Colorado State Penitentiary on Friday, January 11th of 1957.
That was all very quick.
It was all very, very quick. But I found this to be, like, I was starting to go through and I'm like, wow, that's very different.
Yeah.
Because, like, you think of these types of things in these scenarios as being the intent to, I think, kill is much grander than this guy who just wanted to kill his mom.
Yeah.
But instead killed 44 people in one go.
Yeah. When you could have just done, again, don't kill anybody, but you didn't have to kill all of these innocent people that had nothing to do with you and your issues and in whatever trauma you have. Go screw yourself.
Clearly mentally ill. Also interesting because I'm reading this. I'm like, gee, when you're from somewhere and you start reading this stuff, you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, especially when you can be like, oh, that was right by my condo.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm like, that field was, yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the...
that was a good start.
John, you're a greedy bastard.
Yeah, I kind of liked that it wasn't like a typical like...
Yeah, it was very different.
It's much different than mine, which is like your typical like this person hurt people.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I think a lot of people perceive these probably because of like the Datelines in the 2020s.
Oh yeah, but even other true crime
different
podcasts.
Type of murders. But this is a murder. I mean, this
it totally is.
Murdered 44 people in a mass murder.
Yeah,
intending to literally just get money. Like,
it's so gross.
Work for your money.
Right. You even were handed a job by the woman you killed.
It's crazy. It's funny too because greed for me is difficult because I don't get it like at all, and I get asked by a lot of people for support and money because they think I'm some wealthy whatever, and I'm not. But it bothers me a lot when people are so motivated by
taking advantage of others.
Yeah, but I also think that
because asking for money is not a bad thing. Asking for help is not a bad thing.
It's not.
But when it comes a consistent and you are living your life based off of taking advantage of other people,
then it's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
When you're in desperation and need it once, twice, yeah, for sure. But when you're going often, and then the issue is you need to figure that out. But I think that money is at the root of most evil.
Oh, 100%.
Just like religion.
But they kind of go hand in hand.
It kind of stinks, yeah. So a really interesting one, and welcome to Colorado, land of the one of the
farm people.
Land of the farm people.
Fuck, that's such a weird way to put that.
That was really funny. All right, well, Brandon, what is
Are you ready for mine?
I'm ready for your story.
My story is A Psychopath with a Hammer. Ooh, it's the story of the Colorado Hammer Killer.
Ew.
Yeah, this one has a name. And I thought this was interesting. I hadn't heard of this one. However, I'm sure there's other sources out there that have talked about this one. I just haven't, so I thought it was interesting. So, you ready? Just dive in.
Just dive right into that dark hole.
Okay.
Of despair.
Of course, like duh. Stupid. Anyways, so no one knew that the night of January 4th, 1984 would be the start of a 12-day murderous rampage that would take over 30 years to convict the assault of 7 and the murder of 4 people in Colorado.
Is it weird that when you said the date, 1984, my mind went to like a skate castle or like a skate rink, and people are like, jamming
very
with
like,
their, like 80s and
for
80s
sure.
music playing? Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
This is not that kind of story.
Oh. Well, I set the scene.
You did. It was very...
the camera is pulling away from that, and we're going to focus on this other thing.
It's very... why can't I think of Stranger Things?
Very Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Very... what was that one? The Goldbergs.
Yeah. Very different than the
obviously
story as well.
Other ones as well. My mind went to Ruthless People, which
that's
was
such a good
actually
movie.
filmed, I think, in the 80s.
That's a good movie.
This was mid-90s. I don't know. If you have not seen Ruthless People with... Ruthless People is with
Danny
Bette
DeVito.
Midler and Danny DeVito.
I don't know what I said. Did I even say his name correctly?
Danny DeVito?
I feel like I said his last name wrong. Anyways.
I think you might have. But that was not the one I was thinking of. Go watch Ruthless People as well. I was thinking about Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Oh, I love
with
Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Whoopi.
That's a good one.
Oh my God, go watch that too. Okay, sorry.
Again, all very different than what I'm about to get into because I start quickly.
When you start with the 80s, my mind goes, I love the 80s. I do. Oh my God, so much. Okay, anyway.
Okay. So anyways.
Yeah.
So it all started on January 4th in 1984 in the largest Denver suburb, Aurora, Colorado.
Which is where I used to go to Skate Castle. Oh my God.
Yours is all about skating right now.
I do. I loved it. Actually, the reason I do is because my visitations when I was in foster care with my 2 biological sisters were often at Skate Castle in Aurora.
Which is
it might have been called
place.
Skate City. Ooh. I think it might have been Skate City.
Castle City.
Combine it. Either
City Castle.
or okay. All right. Let's move on.
Anyways, back to murder. So again, setting the scene. We're in the Aurora suburb of Colorado. So Jim and Kim Hobbinschild were sleeping in their home, and sometime after 2 a.m. when abruptly Kim was woken by a flash of pain that overcame her.
Oh no.
Yeah. Opening her eyes and seeing a shadow of a man standing, holding a hammer, about to strike again. Terrifying.
Yeah, no thanks.
Realizing what was happening, she screamed, startling the attacker. The attacker threw the hammer and ran out the door. Dazed and confused, she looked over at Jim, who was also trying to gain consciousness from being struck in the face. However, in his own rage, Jim jumped out of bed and chased after the assailant, which I couldn't imagine Jim. That. The adrenaline that must have been pumping through him. Yeah. Quickly, Kim grabbed the phone and dialed 911. By the time the officers arrived, it was a little too late. Following the shoe prints in the fresh snow, they tried to keep track. However, there were quite a bit to follow. Looking as if the attacker was searching for any home that had an unlocked door, he ended up at Jim and Kim's house through the open garage door. So the assailant was wandering around the neighborhood trying to find a door. He was going up and opening up doors to see if anything was open, and he found a garage door, which happened to be Jim and Kim.
Okay. Lesson. Don't lock all of your shit.
Yes.
And it is a routine I do every night.
Yes.
Also, I have a
But this was also in the 80s when it was still a little... I mean, a lot of shit has happened at that point, but a lot of people were still... whatever. So, unfortunately, the police and Jim were not able to find the attacker that night. So then, January 9th, 28-year-old flight attendant Donna Dixon arrived home from a day of shopping. Pulling into her garage, she leaned over the passenger seat to grab something before exiting the car. Then, all of a sudden, she was struck with a striking pain on her temple. What Donna didn't know when she drove into the garage that afternoon, that somebody was waiting for her.
Oh, no.
Attacking her when the assailant found the prime opportunity, he ended up knocking her unconscious, pulling her from the car so hard that it bent the emergency brake lever, and he sexually assaulted her. Gaining consciousness after the incident, she found herself alone in the garage, still holding her keys in her hand.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Her name was Donna?
Yeah, this one is awful. Gaining consciousness. Okay, trying to catch her balance, she stumbled her way to the bedroom. I almost said bedroom like
Bedroom.
I almost did. For some reason that like wants to roll.
I think you should forever call
Bedroom.
it the bedroom. Oh my God, Anna would be dying right now.
She would be.
Because I would lock eyes with her if we were in New York and we both were like, the bedroom.
Anyways, in the bedroom, leaving a bloody scene all over the place, especially in the garage.
Donna.
Yeah. So the next day, her boyfriend Ron, who just arrived home from work as an airplane pilot, was shocked when he saw blood on the stoop of the house. Running inside, he saw Donna lying in a pool of her own dried blood. She was still alive.
Oh my God.
Quickly rushing her to the hospital, it was evident that something was wrong. According to a 9 News interview, Donna said, "In the hospital, I say I had the mentality of a 2-year-old. Everything was new to me. Once again, I didn't know a knife and a fork. I couldn't even tell you that I can't open my mouth and how hard it is to eat." Because she was attacked so brutally. So
awful.
it would end up taking Donna 9 years. I'm sorry. It would end up taking Donna a year and 9 days to get back to normal, to get back to work because of the assault.
I mean, I'm honestly surprised that she was able to get back to normal.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, there's no normal after being attacked like that. But,
No.
But,
there is no normal.
Yeah,
But getting back
yeah.
to a normal work life is that's good for her because I don't know how I would. But when the police arrived at the crime scene, they saw an intense sense that's supposed to be seen. They saw an intense scene of blood all over the garage, and they found a bloody hammer. However, the police, just like before, had no idea who the attacker was. Okay, so next, on January 10th, 1984, 51-year-old Patricia Louise Smith, a recent transplant to the Lakewood suburb of Denver from Nebraska, was settling in after her divorce from her husband. Looking for a new start with her daughter and grandkids, she thought Colorado would be an excellent place for them. It was on the 10th that Patricia was at home during the day while the grandkids were at school, and her daughter, Sherry, was at work. Towards the end of the day, Patricia was supposed to pick up Sherry at the park and ride, their typical meetup spot. However, Patricia never showed up. This immediately made Sherry nervous. Calling her cousin to come pick her up, they grabbed the kids at school. I don't know why I said it like that. They picked up the kids at school and made their way at the house. At school.
They picked up the kids at school.
So they picked up the kids and made their way to the house.
Yeah.
Being surprised when they got there and saw no lights on in the house and a faint glow of the TV shining through Patricia's bedroom window, her bedroom window,
the bedroom.
Only made them grow more concerned because it was dark out.
Yeah.
So opening the door and flicking on the lights, Sherry gasped, seeing her mother's body wrapped in her 4-year-old's grandson's security blanket that was blood-stained. She immediately knew that her mother was dead. Rushing her children to the neighbor's house, they quickly called the police. During the investigation, the police were able to determine that the attacker gained entry into Patricia's home through the open garage door. The attacker found Patricia making lunch, and he violently bludgeoned her with a hammer. That was found next to the body, and he then sexually assaulted her.
Oh my God.
So collecting evidence from all over the crime scene, the police were stumped when they had no idea as to who the killer was. Being that she was new to the area and knew no one, they were puzzled to think that this could have been a complete stranger that did it, which is terrifying.
Fucking garage door, man.
Yep. So again, our stories have some similarities in them sometimes, and yours is he didn't care that he killed a bunch of random people, and this guy killed a bunch of random people.
But I'm also thinking about like all of like our in Berthoud, Colorado, where we like lived on where we were a farm family. Our garage door, our side garage door was not locked.
Yeah,
it was open.
Yeah,
it was like in our dog run. Yeah.
So, all right. Then comes January 16th, 1984. I keep on saying 1984. I don't really need to say that anymore. But
it was January 16th of 1984.
So, Aurora, Colorado couple, 27-year-old Bruce and 26-year-old Deborah Bennett never made it to work that day. Both worked together at a furniture store, so it was hard to miss them if they didn't show up. So coworkers got concerned when they called the typically punctual couple and no one answered. Calling Bruce's mother, Connie, after they wanted to see if she had heard anything. She let them know that she hadn't heard from them either, and her calls also went unanswered. Worried about the couple and their 7-year-old daughter, Melissa, and 3-year-old daughter, Vanessa, Connie got in her car and headed over to the house, trying to figure out what may have happened within the last few hours, because the night before she was over at the house for a birthday celebration for Vanessa, and everything and everyone was fine. As she entered the front door, she immediately saw Bruce's lifeless body in the living room and blood everywhere. Again, this is her son. When the police arrived on the scene, they were able to start putting the pieces together. So at some point in the early morning hours, the same intruder gained access into the home, catching Bruce at the top of the staircase as he was heading down to warm a bottle for Vanessa. They had a physical altercation, and they ended up rolling down the staircase, breaking spindles as they fell together. So after blows to the head with the hammer, the struggle ended after the intruder slit Bruce's throat, leaving him in the living room.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
This is brutal.
Yeah. So as the police continued the search of the house, it didn't get any better. As they entered the primary bedroom, they saw Deborah's body. There was evidence that she was attacked with a hammer, stabbed, and then sexually assaulted. So as they continued through the house, they saw the body of Melissa at the bottom of her bed with her nightgown pushed up and her legs dangling. She too had signs of being attacked by a hammer to her head and sexual abuse. On the other side of the bedroom, squeezed between the wall and another bed, was the body of Vanessa, with visible attack wounds like the rest of the family. The police were shocked to hear her make a noise. Rushing her to the hospital, they were able to keep her alive, even with a broken arm, skull fracture, shattered jaw, broken ribs, and signs of sexual assault.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Again, she was 3 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, this part, it pissed me off a lot.
Wow.
So at this point, the police obviously knew that they had a serial killer on their hands, being that they were attacked all in the same manner.
Yeah.
So they tried to create a profile on this person. They assumed there was no reason for the murders because they were not premeditated. The person was not looking for anyone specific, just an open door. They also assumed that the person was younger because of the sloppiness of the murders and the lack of ability to break into someone's home, since he only looked for the attacker only looked for
open doors,
unlocked houses.
Yeah.
So jiggling the handles of doors until he found the right one. So they also assumed that they could have been in the construction industry because of the use of hammers. Every time he would leave them behind, and every time they were different hammers. Some were old, some were new. However, because of the crimes were in different jurisdictions, each county moved in different directions, not knowing that there could be the potential for a serial killer. And at this time, the police had a mound of evidence, yet no idea who the killer was. So each county were doing their own searches, not connecting, whatever. So,
which I think was a thing at that time where they didn't really connect. We've had that on another podcast too.
But with the idea that this seems a little planned, in the sense that if you're not in the same county doing the same thing over and over and over again, they're not going to realize that it is until something bigger happens.
Sure.
So then on January 26, 1984, in Kingman, Arizona, a Roy Williams was sleeping in his bed. Unbeknownst to him, he would have a visitor enter his house through the unlocked back door. So we moved just over a little bit.
Stop at the back doors being open.
I know. Waking up, Roy was shocked to see a man standing over him, holding a 25-pound slab of granite. The attacker swiftly threw it in the air and drove it down onto Roy's head, knocking him out cold. Picking it back up and driving it back down, the second blow landed on his chest, breaking some ribs. Roy, however, was not having it and somehow gained consciousness, got up, and chased the man out of the house.
Jesus.
I don't know what's up with these dudes, but they're like, bred different back then.
Jesus.
Calling the police immediately, they arrived and tried to understand what happened. Unfortunately, Roy couldn't identify his attacker because of it being nighttime and it was so dark, there wasn't much police could go off of until they noticed a clear shoe print leaving Roy's home with a very visible 9 on the imprint. They were able to tell that the print came from a tennis shoe size 9. Without the shoe size and style documented, with the shoe size and style documented, that's exactly what I just said. It didn't sound right as I was looking at it. The officers put out a BOLO. I kind of want to just say BOLO, which
I think that they say BOLO.
It might be BOLO, but it's what it means is be on the lookout.
Yeah, it's totally BOLO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few hours later, that same day, a police officer was on who was on duty saw a hitchhiker walking down the road. Interested in talking to the man, he pulls over and questions him. Being told that the man was trying to get home to California, something didn't seem right. So asking him if he could see the imprint of his shoe, the officer was surprised to see the same number 9 as described in the BOLO.
Heifer.
Right, we all knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Asking the man to come to the station, the police officer was surprised again when the hitchhiker took off. However, after a short 30 minutes, the unknown man was found and taken into the station.
Okay, good.
So here is when we would hear the name Alex Christopher Ewing. So Alex was a 5'3", very short man, 23-year-old high school dropout from Sacramento, California. Throughout his life, are you just shocked his size?
He was 5'3"?
He was 5'3". He was a small man, apparently. Yeah. So throughout
a 5'3" man yielding a fucking hammer
into 25-pound slab and slice. Yeah. So throughout his life, he was in and out of trouble. In 1979, he had been arrested for several burglaries and grand theft auto.
I'm sorry, burglaries?
Did I say burglaries?
He was arrested for several burglaries.
He's the burger monster.
Burglaries.
The burglar. The hamburglar. So he was in and out of jail and getting in trouble, just kind of like your guy.
Yeah.
And in about 1984, he moved to Colorado. Right before 1984, he moved to Colorado and took on a construction job. So he was only in Colorado for about a year at this point. So Alex was quickly arrested and charged with attempted murder against Roy. As he awaited his trial, Alex was placed in the Mojave County Sheriff Department jail, but due to overcrowding, about 7 months later, Alex was transferred to that part's not correct, so that goes to the next part. Due to overcrowding, I'm not sure when that's a different note. Alex was transferred to the Washington County Jail in Utah. So by August 9th, which was 7 months later, Alex was put on a bus to head back to Arizona for his trial. With a quick pit stop to grab gas in Henderson, Nevada, Alex took his chance and escaped the transport. Right?
All right.
So running across the street to Kmart, he quickly grabbed new clothes and got out of his orange jumpsuit and fled the area by foot. Once the officers noticed Alex was missing, they went on the search. However, they couldn't find him. Until the next day when the police station answered a 911 call from a 24-year-old Nancy Berry. That evening, Nancy and husband, 34-year-old Christopher, were at home and they were getting ready to tuck in for the night. Going to prep a bottle for their youngest of their 2 children, Nancy went over to the kitchen. When she turned on the lights in the kitchen, she shrieked when she saw a man standing in the middle of the kitchen holding a broken axe handle. The man was obviously Alex. So, running to the bedroom to get her husband, Alex followed her, reaching Christopher at the same time the intruder started to attack him, hitting him with the broken axe handle. Christopher sustained extensive injuries to his face and jaw. Trying to help, Nancy tried to push off Alex, which caused him to hit her hard enough to break both of her wrists and fracture her arm.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. So when Nancy got a free moment, she ran to the phone and called 911.
How?
Huh?
How?
With her broken wrist? Somehow.
Well,
I don't know. I've never had a broken wrist, but I imagine you can still press the buttons.
Nancy, can you let us know how?
I'm sure she just hit they were buttons on a phone. It's not like it was a cell phone.
Was that like, well, by that time you had, like
it wasn't a rotary
antenna.
Oh,
I think you had the
in 84 probably in the 80s, yeah.
Or the phone, like on the wall. The
it was definitely a phone.
And you could
yeah. Anyways, once Nancy got a free moment, she called 911. And Alex continued. He continued to hit her until she played dead in hopes he would stop, which he did. So quickly after the phone call, the police arrived to the house. However, they were moments late. They never captured the intruder, but luckily both Nancy and Christopher and their kid survived the attack.
Jesus Christ.
Then, on August 11th...
I know. This is why when you're transporting murderers, they should not be able to escape.
Right?
Fucking idiots.
A collect call was placed from a payphone in Lake Mead, Nevada. And I have a note in here... because I don't know the generations of people who listen to this. So, and for those who are too young to know what a collect call is, I figured I would answer this. So back in the day, you could do a reverse charge on a phone call. So much like the correctional facilities today, if a prisoner calls you and you see it on the movies where it says, "Will you accept this collect call from Kevin Talaska?"
It's more like the Arapahoe County Jail.
Yeah. Oh, an inmate at the Arapahoe.
Yeah. If you watch like a Dateline or whatever, it's actually it's on there. Yeah, you can hear it on there.
So you would be able to pick up so back then you would be able to pick up a payphone and request an operator to give a number a call, and the person who you were calling could accept the charges. Yeah. So it would be on them to pay for the call.
You would pay the charges for the collect call.
Yeah. Listening into part of the conversation, the phone operator heard this man describe that he escaped from prison and that he needed help. So I didn't say who he called, but the operator didn't hang up immediately and heard some stuff.
I was like, oh?
Yeah, so being that he was not used... that he needed help. Being that he was not used to the extreme temperatures of Nevada, he was dehydrated and on the brink of collapse. So the operator called the police.
Good.
So when the police and the park rangers arrived, Alex was in bad shape, only wearing shorts covered in sunburns, scrapes, and scratches. It was obvious that he was not doing well. Trying to run from them, he only got a few feet before he would collapse from exhaustion. So Alex was then apprehended and brought back to jail. In 1985, Alex was charged and convicted of 2 counts of attempted murder, burglary, and escape for his most recent escapades, racking up a 110-year sentence.
But they still haven't connected the Colorado.
Yeah. One. So, however, before the extent of the sentencing for the Berry family, the charges against Roy were dropped, which makes no sense to me because they were like, he's already in there for 110 years. Roy was attacked, but Roy, I guess, doesn't matter. I don't know. I couldn't find much on that.
Rude.
So, which it's funny that you brought that other mention up because now you may be wondering, what about the other attacks and murders?
Yeah.
During this time, the police did not stop their search. Eventually, they were able to connect the assaults and murders together. And in total, they interviewed over like 500 people, which led them nowhere. However, in 2002, for the first time in the state of Colorado, an arrest warrant was obtained for the killer based on the DNA results they collected of the crime scene without a known murderer.
Wow.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So they're basically like, this is the killer, and we don't know who it is, but whoever connects to this DNA will be, charged. So then into 2017, the police heard of a new technology called genetic phenotyping, partnering with Virginia-based company called Parabon. I think that's how you say it. They were able to take the DNA and create a facial reconstruction of what the person may look like. This image was circulated in all major media outlets. And side note, it didn't actually look that much like him, so it didn't really go anywhere.
I was going to say, I didn't even know they could do that.
Yeah. However, before... this company solved a couple other cases, so they thought that it could help, and they did it so that they could figure it out. So,
sure.
And they regularly would check the combined DNA index system, or CODIS for short, to see if they could find a match. Later that same year, detectives started to open up their search to see if they could find any other similar crimes in other areas. Since there was an abrupt stop with no additional attacks for years, they thought that maybe the killer was either dead or they were incarcerated already. Mm-hmm. So their search ended up bringing them to a case in Henderson, Nevada, and a man named Alex Ewing. With too many similarities, detectives reached out to the North Nevada Correctional Center medium security prison where Alex was to see if they could get a DNA sample. By early 2018, the results were in, and they finally had a suspect for the murders of the Bennett family and the murder of Patricia Smith. So on August 17th, 2021, Alex was put to trial and was sentenced to 3 additional life sentences of felony murder for the murder of the Bennett family. He was also scheduled for another trial in October 2021 for the murder of Patricia Smith, which ended in a mistrial because the defense requested Alex would undergo a competency evaluation, which he passed. Meaning, they basically were like, you are competent. You are very competent. You just prolonged the inevitable. And Alex was then convicted of the murder in the fourth life sentence to his prison term on April 12th of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah. He is currently still in prison at the Colorado Territorial Correctional Facility in Canyon City, Colorado. Unfortunately for Jim and Kim Hobbins' Donna Dixon, it would be too late for Alex to be tried for the assault on each of them. In the state of Colorado, the statute of limitations for assault is 3 years, and for sexual assault is 20. And Alex was found 34 years after the sexual assault of Donna. Yeah. So with just some facts, I have a quote from Vanessa because from this she had a very difficult life.
Yeah,
it caused a lot of different things, and she struggled a lot.
This is the very first.
This was
one that you talked about, right?
No,
one in the garage.
This is the 3-year-old.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Vanessa.
So this quote that I saw said, "I'm sober now, but I still can't talk about things, many things, with my family or anybody for that matter. But all everyone else sees is my anger and my antisocial behavior. I didn't just lose my parents and my sister. I lost my trust in people, in my dignity and pride. I lost the person I was supposed to be," which I thought was awful.
Oh, I just want to hug her.
Right. And then I have 2 other short little things that by the time detectives realized Alex was the murderer, he was only 3 years away from being eligible for parole.
Shit.
Yeah, so if they didn't match his DNA, he could have potentially gotten out.
So it's a really good thing
that
all
they
of that
kept
kind
going.
of happened. I'm really glad that
especially
they
for a
bring
cold
out-
case.
Yeah, I'm glad that they, when their like cycles of detectives come in, that they recycle those old cases because it's clear that I think that there's some broken systems in general for all things. I do think that their dedication to cold cases is just really,
I agree,
really admirable.
I agree.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in the last one I have, so Connie Bennett, Bruce Bennett, the father of the family, Connie was his mom, said, "Some people may call him an animal, but I won't because I think animals have a purpose in this world."
Oh shit!
That
was his own mom?
Loved that. No, that was the mom of the father who died. So Vanessa's father.
Oh yeah.
So she said, "Some people may call him an animal, but I won't because I think animals have a purpose in this world."
Well, I completely agree with that, girlfriend.
And that's how I will end the story of this jackass.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, I've never heard of that at all. And that was multiple states, so that's craziness. That was crazy bananas.
Bananas. Yeah, I thought that was a good one when I saw it. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Colorado. Which, if you watch a lot of these true crime shows, there's a lot of times where Colorado and Florida specifically are featured on these shows. And that's because of the open records laws. So, even my guy, John, there was a lot of like stuff out there. Granted, this was 1950s, right? So there's been a lot of time, and it's been featured on other podcasts and stuff like that for sure. This one, I've never heard of that. But I think that it's worth noting, it doesn't matter where you live. Lock your fucking doors.
Yes, lock your doors.
All of them, including your side garage door. We don't have a garage.
No,
but
it would be locked if we did.
Triple locked.
Yes.
I am so paranoid that we have alarms on every window.
We do. Every door.
Everything.
Sirens outside.
And it literally, the door opens up. So if somebody wanted to be like smashing our door, that fucking alarm, first off, it's on the outside of our house too. Yeah, motherfuckers. But it's on the outside of our house too. And it immediately goes up. And it is allowed.
Every time I open up the door and forget,
oh my God,
it so terrifies me. And I'm like, oh my God, our neighborhood is going to hate us.
They already do because we're the homosexuals in the neighborhood surrounded by Christians. Oh, well.
Right.
Anyways.
Well, that was a good episode.
Yeah. Welcome to Colorado.
Right.
I love Colorado.
It is a really great state.
It really is. I loved growing up there. If you're a listener in Colorado, hi.
Hello.
That's it. Anyway, really good episode. What's the next episode about? Do we know what we're doing on the next episode? on episode 18?
It might be satanic ritualistic
killers. Ugh, and there's a lot of them, unfortunately.
I know.
Yeah, and then something else after that. I don't know.
Of course, there's always going to be something.
But yeah.
Don't forget to rate and
Don't forget to subscribe, but don't forget to follow, rate, review.
Do all the fun stuff that podcasters want you to do. That'd be great.
Please, there was the media card. Please go over to Apple and leave us a review and rating. And Spotify is great too, but Apple is like the most powerful because we want to start showing up on some shit. We have had a lot of downloads recently. Y'all are loving this stuff. So thank you for following along on our little journey. This is a fun little thing that we get to do in our
fun little
life.
project.
Brandon and I are always together. I don't know how
You're welcome.
We are able to be together always. We have our moments, believe me, but very rarely. It's fun to... You're not even listening.
We have our moments very, very rarely.
Rare.
This is one of those moments, I guess.
Shut up. Anyway, cool. Episode 8. What is this one? 17? 18? Oh, fuck. I don't remember. 17. Episode 17. I cannot believe we're 17 episodes in. Thank you so much for following us on this little true crime journey. We're a mess, but maybe that makes it better.
Maybe.
I don't know. Who knows?
I think it just makes us relatable.
Yes. We are relatable to anyone who doesn't hate us for being gay. Thank you. Anyway, episode 17. So follow us on social media. Please go follow us on TikTok. We'll have more fun videos there. Drama, fun, laughter, murder. That's that. So
That was beautiful.
Yeah. Poetic.
It was.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. It's not a haiku.
I know it's not.
It's definitely not a haiku.
It just came to my mind.
Do you know what a haiku is?
It's like
there's like a character limit in all
there
sorts
is.
of shit.
It's like a very specific way of writing.
I know. I had a text exchange with Jen and Katie, our friends.
Yeah.
You know? And Katie said something, and I was like, I'm going to turn this into a haiku. But I had to actually go look
And figure out what a haiku is again.
No, I knew what a haiku was, but I didn't know the like...
Cadence.
Yes. Like I knew it was like 3 parts, but like there's this many that you can put in that and then that and that. So there's a whole structure to it. I looked it up and then sent the haiku, but I did it very quickly. So they probably don't know until they listen to this, if they listen to it. So
they will.
Thanks. Anyway, bye.
Bye.